The Marinade.
There's no O in Marinade. Let's try it one more time. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
The Marinade.
Marinade.
Bone marinade. The
That's
Marinade.
The Marinade. With Jason Earle.
Skipping cracks in the sidewalk, kicking cracks in my leg. Keep on sticking to my block, stuck on a loop. Got bones in my backyard, so I stay shut up in my house.
Welcome to The Marinade, a free-flowing conversation about the creative process with creative people. This is episode 140, and our guest is River Shook. Known professionally by their birth name, Sarah, River is the lead singer and songwriter for their bands, Sarah Shook and the Disarmers and Nightmare. Y'all, if you've listened to this show for any amount of time, you know how much I love River and their work. This is their second appearance on The Marinade. The first was way back in 2018, ahead of Sarah Shook and the Disarmers show in Orlando, Florida. A lot has happened for them and for me since that talk, as you will hear in this episode. We caught up with River at the inaugural AVL Fest in Asheville, North Carolina, ahead of their incredible set at the legendary Orange Peel. I have to say a huge thanks to Wicked Weed Brewing and Worthwhile Sounds, who sponsored the festival, and Victory Lap Media for inviting us to cover AVL Fest. Danielle and Victory Lap Media do such a great job and take such great care of us. If you're an artist or festival organizer in need of publicity, keep Victory Lap in mind. This is not a paid advertisement. I just appreciate the work they do. Speaking of which, we caught up with River in the media area that was set aside at Citizen Vinyl, the impossibly cool Citizen Vinyl in downtown Asheville. So if you hear really cool music and interesting background conversations, don't worry about adjusting your podcast machine. It's just all a part of the experience. Everyone, it is my great honor to bring you my conversation with River Shook.
I didn't mean to go on about it. Talking to myself about it. Talking to myself. I didn't mean to go on about it. Talking to myself. Talking to myself.
All right. I've done this since 2018, so as a refresher, this thing is temperamental and makes like pop noises if you don't hold it kind of still.
Okay.
I tend to just kind of like hold it like this, basically. That seems to fix it for the most part. But speaking of which, it's been since 2018 since we've done this.
It's been a long time.
It's been a lifetime for you.
Yes. A few lifetimes.
There's so much to talk about. I want to talk, and this is kind of half selfish for me because I'm kind of going through like I don't know if it's a sobriety journey or like I don't know how to describe it exactly. What I've been saying is I still drink, but I quit drinking.
Yep.
And I still haven't written that song, but if anybody wants to take that, just give me co-writing credit.
Nice.
Including you. And let me just double check that your mic is on and everything's good. I'm sorry. And thanks.
Yep.
And so like one of the things that I really appreciate about you is how open you are with your mental health, how open you are with your big life choices like that. And it helps me, and I know it helps other folks to hear you talk about these things so openly, to discuss them. And so I'm wondering if we could start there with your decision to get sober and sort of what you were going through. Because the last time we did this, you and I were sitting across from each other. You were smoking a cigarette, drinking some whiskey. I was drinking a beer. The world feels different to me in this moment. And I look and sitting here next to you now in Asheville, you look different. It feels different. Can you talk about that decision to start us off?
Absolutely. I spent a lot of time researching sobriety and thinking about getting sober and dabbling with sobriety a few times before I was actually successful with it. I think you know, I write songs based on my experience. So when you listen to Sidelong or Years, like all of those songs about like drinking as a coping mechanism and sort of as a tool to try to navigate a world that can be pretty confusing and uncomfortable. All of that is actual and real, based on real actual experiences. So I was pretty much getting wasted every night. I feel like my drinking definitely accelerated when the band started touring, and I was put in this position that was very like public facing, and that was not something that I would have ever chosen for myself. I'm pretty introverted and trying to figure out how to navigate this industry that is, it's like any other industry. There's really good people, and then there's also like a lot of people who are sort of cutthroat, and they just have a completely different set of motives than I do. It's just like, I write songs so that I don't kill myself. Like, yeah. I'm not out here trying to like get famous or make millions of dollars, or like, that's just not what this is for me. So I think I didn't really have any other way at the time to deal with a lot of really complex issues that I was facing, and alcohol was easy. It was, you know, you don't have to think anymore. It's just like, yep, the problems exist, and they're still there lurking in the background, but like they're a little blurrier and a little more out of focus, and I don't have to think about it as much. And after a few years of that, your body starts telling you that you really need to quit.
Yeah.
I was waking up and having like really, really bad like blood sugar crashes and like shaking and like scary stuff, just like picking up a cup to take a sip and like your hand shaking, your lips are shaking, like your body is just like, what are you doing to me, bro?
Yeah.
And it was also getting to a point where it was affecting my personal life. And the last night that I drank, I was in Winnipeg, and we had just played a folk festival up there. And it was the last night of the festival, and all the artists were staying at the same big fancy hotel. And the hotel staff was just like, we know y'all have liquor and beer in your rooms. Just, we know the hotel bar is expensive, so just like bring it down to the lobby and feel free. It's the last night, like have a party. So there was a massive party downstairs in the lobby, and my phone was dying, and I was wasted. And I texted my partner and was just like, hey, I'm going to go downstairs to this party. I hope you have a good night. And he was back home wasted, and he was just like, yeah, okay, cool. Yeah. And then I woke up the next morning, and I had all these texts where he was just like, I thought you were going to come back and say goodnight. Like, and I was like, no, that was me saying goodnight. It was just like a big messy situation that literally only happened because we were both drunk and not communicating well. Yeah. And when you realize that you sort of like put somebody that you care about in this position of distress, and it didn't even need to happen, you know, it was a moment, and we FaceTimed the next morning and just like looked at each other, and we both looked like absolute garbage. And I was like, dude, like we have to quit. Like this has gotten to a point where I think it's time. And I was like, I can't tell you what to do, but I know for me, like I can't keep doing this. Yeah. And that was July 15th of 2019.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, yeah. Yep.
Because I think I saw you, and I remember it vividly just because, well, first of all, I've just always, I mean, since I first listened to your records, I've just felt this connection to you and the work that you do and who you are. And then getting to meet you that first time, I mean, that's still, we went on for 30 minutes that first episode. We recorded for like 45 or whatever. And then we had 30 minutes off mic that was just like, we really went in the shit, you know? And it was a bummer that we were off mic, but we really got in the weeds, you know? And then, so this is, again, pre-sobriety. And then I saw you play, and you played a fucking killer show at Will's Pub right after you'd gotten sober. I don't remember how long that was, but it couldn't have been very long if you stopped drinking in July.
Yeah.
Because the world shut down not long after. And you talk a little bit. You talked about that introverted part, because I remember I was leaving, and I was not sober, and I saw you, and it was like you had just finished your set, and you had this look on your face like, I want to acknowledge you. I don't want to like ignore you right now.
Right.
But you had that look on your face like, I'm fucking spent.
Yeah.
I am fucking spent. And you
Yep.
gave me a big hug, and it was cool. And then I was just like, okay, I'm gonna leave him alone. But I wonder, like, with that, like, coping, right, is the thing I'm learning. I do so much with alcohol, and
Yeah.
I never wanted to admit it, because at that point, then you have to make a decision.
Yeah.
It's like when you acknowledge that you're using it to cope, that's when you have to do something about it.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it until I had physical stuff too. Thought I was having a heart attack for a month. My anxiety had gotten completely out of control. And I went to the doctor. They weren't very helpful. I went to a different doctor who was like, dude, you got to get on anxiety meds. And so for the last month, I've actually been on medication for the first time in my life. And one of the things about the medication is that, like, I don't want to drink anymore. I mean, I do. Like I said, I still drink, but I quit drinking, right?
Yeah.
I still have a drink here, have a drink there, maybe have a couple drinks, in fact. But I realized that the reason I was doing it so often wasn't because of anything other than I was coping. What, for you, what is that coping looking like now? Like, what are you doing to cope, to deal with? Because all the shit still stays there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really great question. I think sobriety is different for everyone, because I think that everyone has a different relationship with alcohol. And anytime I'm on stage and I talk about sobriety at all, I preface anything I'm going to say with, I don't think everybody needs to quit drinking. I needed to quit drinking. I think there are a lot of people who aren't addicts. They don't have that thing, that desire that's just like, if I have one, I'm going to have 25, you know? But I think that, I think, like you said, when you realize that you are using it to cope, if you're only having like 1 or 2 drinks a month, and it is like this sort of coping and like, well, this helps me in like a social situation where I would otherwise be maybe too uncomfortable to socialize.
Yeah.
Like, everybody has to decide for themselves what is acceptable to them. Like, maybe that's okay for you to use that as a coping mechanism.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
I think having physical symptoms is definitely a pretty good sign that like you've tipped the scale into the abusing it part.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in the early days, I think I realized right off the bat, if I'm going to quit and actually make it stick this time, like, I have to try to change the way I even perceive alcohol. Whereas before, my brain is just like, this is a reward, and like, this is what I do to treat myself when I've had a rough day or when I've had to deal with a difficult person or situation. The biggest thing that made a difference for me was that I decided to go for a 15-minute walk every day, no matter what. And a big part of why that was impactful for me is because I have so much social anxiety. So like, walking around my neighborhood is like, at that point in my life, was really scary. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be around people. I don't want people looking at me. So it was a big deal to commit to even just 15 minutes a day.
Yeah.
And so I started doing that, rain or shine. And, not even a full year after I got sober, the world shut down. So it definitely freed up my time to really commit to this.
Yeah.
And I think about a year and a month, it was like 13 months almost to the day after I started going for my daily 15-minute walk. I was in the middle of my walk and I had this realization of just how different of a person I was simply because of exercising this habit, where it wasn't like, oh, I need to go to the gym 5 days a week for 30 minutes. It was like, no, I just need to do this one tiny thing that scares me every single fucking day, and I just need to do it even though it scares me. And
Yeah.
I think that there's something there about rebuilding your faith in yourself, which is a really big deal if you know, you're drinking because as a coping mechanism due to like trauma, and which I certainly was, especially for folks who have been in abusive relationships or have been in raised in very oppressive environments. That stuff erodes your faith in yourself because you stay, like so many of us stay for so long. And so it's like every day we're making this decision that's putting us in harm's way. And then once you get out of it and once you're on the other side and you kind of have a little bit more clarity, you're just like, oh my God, like I mean, no, I'm not the abuser, but like I subjected myself to that.
Yeah.
How can I ever trust myself again? How can I ever trust my judgment again if that's what I'm willing to put myself through? So, you know, drinking was something that helped me not have to ask hard questions that.
Yeah.
And when you quit drinking, all that hard stuff comes up. And part of it was walking for me, and part of it was starting therapy. And just like once a week talk therapy, going into it with the mindset that like I am not going to this person for them to fix me.
Yeah.
Like nobody can fix me.
Yeah.
I can fix me. This person is a sounding board.
Yeah.
And this person can help me figure out if the steps that I'm choosing to take are like putting me on a path that's going to get me where I want to go.
You know, that part I'm living with too is like I did have regular talk therapy for years, and then I got to the place where I just didn't have regular insurance, and so I wasn't going. And then I was replacing that talk therapy with wine, right? And it wasn't a conscious decision.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I was at all. You know, it just I needed something to quiet all that existential dread.
Yeah.
And that's what I was turning to so often. I'm really interested in, you know, anytime I talk to somebody who has made stuff while they were drinking and then made stuff while they're not drinking, I'm fascinated in that. But I specifically am interested in the two most recent records from you, the most recent Disarmers record and then the Nightmare stuff that I fucking adore.
Thank you.
I absolutely adore it. And I wonder, do you think that record, specifically the Nightmare record, would have happened if you were still drinking? Do you
Absolutely
think
not.
No.
And I mean, not even just logistically, but I wouldn't have had the energy to do it. I might have had the interest. I feel like some of those songs were in sort of a demo phase. So these were things that I was like kind of messing around with when I was still drinking. But I think that's something that a lot of people don't consider when they're thinking about recovery or sobriety, is like sobriety and recovery are not just not drinking or like not doing the drugs. It's like facing the trauma from your past, and it's asking the hard questions and figuring out what answers are right for you specifically. And it's also just like waking up not feeling like death every morning. Like the amount of energy and the amount of creativity and creative energy is like kind of astounding. And that's something that I didn't even consider. I was like, I just want to get better and feel better, you know? And I didn't expect to like have this boundless energy because I'm not like hampering myself mentally and physically every night with booze. Yeah.
I think BJ Barham said about Jason Isbell, like he took the training wheels off when he stopped drinking. You know, he was already faster than everybody, but then he took the training wheels off and like shot out like a rocket.
Yep.
You know, I'm paraphrasing. Sorry, BJ, if you're listening to this and I misquoted you, but that's basically what happened, right? And so with Nightmare, like were those sounds for years sort of in the back of your head? Because I mean, it sounds like, and I don't want to project too much onto you having only met you twice, but it feels like a very authentic version of what someone is trying to make, right? Like something that's like these sounds. It seems like something that maybe had been like sitting there somewhere that then had to come out. Is that accurate? And like, can you talk a little bit about that? Because sonically, it's so different from your Disarmer stuff.
Yeah, I think that's an accurate description. I think that it was some of those songs were older, some of them were newer, but I think mentally I was in a place where I was ready to kind of go into that sort of different genre, different feel. That was also, the Disarmers had just cut Night Roamer in Los Angeles at the beginning of March 2020 and flew home, and literally within like a week or two, like California shut down. So it was like, oh my God, not only can we not put this record out, we can't tour on it. Like, I'm going to be home for who knows how long. Yeah. And especially being in those early stages of sobriety, I was like, I have to have something to focus all of my attention on. Like, yes, I'm walking for 15 minutes every day, and yes, I'm going to talk therapy, but I need a creative endeavor that, I am the boss of, and I'm not accountable to anybody else for. Like, I'm making all the decisions. Yeah. And that's something else that I just realized in this moment too. Like, there were a lot of moments when we were tracking Night Roamer that I was just like, this is not the way I want to do this. I'm not happy with this. There was like headbutting and there was some pushing and pulling. So having the freedom to completely do everything the way that I wanted to do was super liberating. Initially, it was supposed to be an indie rock record, and because I didn't have a drummer, I had to like use electronic beats. So then you have this record that's supposed to be indie rock that has this total twist, and now it's this sort of lo-fi shoegaze pop thing. Yes. With indie rock riffs.
Yes. Yes, it is.
But like lots of different instrumentation. There's like harps and erhus and like all different weird instruments in there.
Dude, it's so great. And I think, because I think I remember you kind of teasing it a little bit on social media. You mentioned a little bit about it, and I just have so much faith in your work that I was sure it was going to be good, but I didn't know I was going to be like leveled that way, right? That I was going to think it was that fucking good. I guess it's probably tough to play that like live. Have you toured? Did you get to tour that record at all?
We did. We did a 2-week tour. That started a couple days after the album dropped, and it was like a 2-week headlining tour, and the songs live are exactly how I envisioned them before I made the record. So it is like, it's a completely different animal. It's super, like at times it's really heavy. It's like Blake plays guitar and synth. So there's still that element of synth floating around melodically, but it's a lot heavier and a lot darker, and I love the record for what it is, and I also love the live show for what it is. It's cool. Like, it's an interesting dichotomy.
Is there any chance you could slip in a Nightmare song during a Disarmers set?
I don't think we've done that. We've slipped a Disarmer song into a Nightmare set.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We did Been Loving You.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yep.
Well, speaking of, and for folks listening, Blake's sitting right here, by the way, but the Night Roamer also, I was listening to it again today and trying to think through like what it is that hits different about that record. And I don't have a good answer for that, other than, and I don't know how much of a question I have here for you more than just a compliment, which is you just keep getting better.
Thank you.
You're continuing to grow as a writer, and from my opinion, you're continuing to grow in terms of just the way the songs are written. I've been a fan of yours since the beginning, but the most recent things that you're putting out are to me are like a pretty significant step up, and that is not to at all disparage the old stuff, which I absolutely love and I'm on record as loving, but it just seems like you keep getting better.
Thank you. I think that's, recovery is part of that, for sure. I mean, Night Roamer, I feel like the songwriting is evolving at that point. I feel like when we tracked Night Roamer, that set of songs in particular is a very transitional phase. because one of the things that I was the most scared of when I quit drinking, kind of the only thing I was scared of, was like, well, what if I can ever write a song again?
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's,
of course, yeah.
now you're fucking with both my coping mechanisms.
Sure,
Like,
yeah.
what the hell?
Yeah.
And yeah, I did go through like I think it was like a 6-month dry spell. Like I didn't write anything for like 6 months, and I was like, oh, here we go. And then when I started writing again, it was just different, because in the past, like, I had been drinking like 2 double whiskeys before I even sat down with the guitar.
Right.
So going in completely cold sober was different. And I feel like things sort of evolved naturally into this more like narrative, objective, outside looking in, self-analytical, which I've always been that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's part of what I identify with so much in your music. But sobriety can't be the only thing there. Like, obviously that's a huge help, and you've talked about that. But there's more to it than just that, right? So like, has your process changed? Like, what else has changed that has gotten you to the place you are right now creatively?
So kind of flipping that on its head, or even like going back in the timeline more, I have always been a person who is pretty obsessed with self-betterment and learning things and growing and evolving, and changing, and not being in a fixed stagnant state, just like constantly moving forward and like absorbing. And I think when I started binge drinking, and I did for years and years and years, I think I got into that state of stagnancy that I had always wanted to avoid.
Yeah.
And what happened is, when I came out of that, it's like the evolution just like kick-started into high gear, where it's just like, okay, we're back and we have like a lot of catching up to do. And you just wasted all this time. So like, let's just, light speed, full speed ahead.
Uh-huh.
Let's go. Sobriety and recovery are just like a part of a much bigger thing for me. Like, self-betterment and growth and evolution is like the big thing. And those things just like played into that.
Man, that's great. I want to be mindful of your time here, and we have already just about gotten to a half hour. So I want to be mindful of that, but I can't in this conversation without first just saying, just thank you for being so generous to the Marinade. You've been so good to me and to the show, and both in person and online. And like, I just really appreciate that. And then we always end on what you're getting down on. So the art that has you fired up at the moment, like, what are you consuming right now? It could be a book you're reading, could be a painting you've seen, music you're listening to.
Let's see. Today in the van, I found a song called Stonecutters by Dope Lemon. And I've listened to that about 30 times today. So that's been my day. I think maybe even the last time we talked, I was already talking about being obsessed with the Black Angels. So yeah, which is still, I mean, they're like top 3 bands. They do not put out a bad record. Every record they release is a fucking banger.
And it's crazy to me they're not more sort of, I mean, of course, so many of the bands we love are not really well known, right? But how they seem like an undeniable kind of, have like a universality to them. Like that, there's something about that sound that you're just like, why isn't this the thing that every cool kid talks about and listens to? And I don't know what that is, but yeah, every fucking record is awesome.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember this story that I'm just about to butcher, but I had somebody on the show whose name is escaping me at the moment. This is high quality radio here, folks.
Hell yeah.
I had somebody on the show years ago who used to hang out with the Black Angels. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening. Woo. This is, man, what a banger of a story. Jesus Christ. It'll come to me as soon as we finish, of course, right? Sorry, dude who was on the show, who used to hang with the Black Angels. This could have been such a moment. Man, I'm so excited to see your set tonight. Like, I haven't gotten to see you since 2019. I guess that was the last time that I got to see you. And that was just such a killer killer night, and you always bring it, and you got, I haven't heard any of these new songs either live, so really, really excited for that. And just thank you so much again for just being so generous with your time and energy.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Let's not wait 5 years.
Let's not wait 5 years.
Right.
Just let's, if you could help stave off any pandemics, any, make sure that our logistics work.
Yes.
Piece of cake.
I'll put a good word in.
Yeah, thank you.
The cat's on the corner, pills in my kitchen for my cough. That shit going down on the border. That brain don't ever turn off. Talking to myself about it. Talking to myself. I didn't mean to go on about it.
River Shook, y'all. Thank you so much, River. Thank all of you for listening. The song you're hearing in this episode is Talking to Myself from the album Night Roamer by Sarah Shook and the Disarmers. Disarmers.com for all things Sarah Shook and the Disarmers. Mightmare.com for all things Mightmare. MarinadePodcast.com for all things The Marinade. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, Spoutable, Twitter, Blue Sky, Mastodon, all the things except Facebook. Subscribe and give us a 5-star rating on your podcast app. Tell a friend about the show. These are all free ways to support the Marinade. Go do that now while you are listening, please. It makes a big difference for us and costs so little of your time and effort. If you really like what we're doing and can swing it, please consider joining our Patreon community. Just a few bucks a month, y'all. $2 a month, you can gain access to Patreon exclusive content like our show Jason's Journey, where I talk about the moments that shape my creative life and provide a window into the process of making the Marinade. Y'all, you can now try a free trial of Patreon to see if you like it. No pressure. Try it for 7 days. Set a reminder on your phone in case you want to cancel. Keep going if you dig it. We also have a monthly show called What We're Getting Down On. It's a conversation between me and my good friend Peter Haraldson. We're having a lot of fun making that. We also have our show Inner Child, where sometimes I ask our guests childlike questions such as favorite food, TV show, dream car, stuff like that. If you want to support the show financially, but you don't want to commit to a monthly subscription, I totally get that. You can Venmo or PayPal us. It's just at The Marinade, and all the money goes right back into the making of the show. There is no conversation with River Shook this time around without our Patreon patrons. I mean, we could have done things on Zoom, and that would have been great, and I'm thankful that we have that technology and that we utilize it quite a bit. But it was special, and it was special to be where we were. It was special to have Blake, her guitar player, in attendance. There's just, the whole thing was great, and it happened because we have the support of our Patreon patrons. We have another incredible episode on the way. It's got Willie Carlisle, and I am so excited for y'all to hear it. That was recorded at the same AVL festival. Mark your calendars for next year, y'all. It was such a great time. Above all, we're just so thankful that you listen and spread the word about the Marinade. Until next time, go out and create something. Cheers, y'all.